Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. First and foremost, I'm going to apologize. I've been fighting a severe sinus infection, and my voice is on its last legs. I've been trying to cycle what I do to get some things done. I have a lot of obligations that require me to speak, do videos, things of that nature. So I'm pushing it right now. And at first I was going to literally live stream this particular video on my YouTube channel, but then I thought that I might be best served, the purpose for which I'm doing this would be best served on this particular platform because of a lot of the things I've seen and I've read surrounding this particular topic. First and foremost, let me say that from a grind perspective, from a story perspective, from a background perspective, much love for this young lady and her hustle and her overcoming the things she's overcome to get what she's getting at. This is not necessarily a personal assault on this young lady. I'm talking about the state of being, the state of mind of Black America and America in general, because trust me, she didn't get to the Hot 100 by only being supported and played by Black stations and Black people. So this speaks in totality to the holistic existence or state of mind of America and where we're at in this Western European culture. And but what I want to focus on is what it means to us. I want to first and foremost say, okay, Cardi B's song has hit the Hot 100's #1 spot. Now, this is significant because this has only happened one other time with a Black female, and that person was Lauryn Hill. Now, I want those of us who are old enough to remember Lauryn Hill in her prime, the miseducation of Lauryn Hill, the Fugees. And I want you to sit up and I want you to think about Lauryn Hill, the writer, Lauryn Hill, the vocalist, Lauryn Hill, the rapper, one of the most gifted Black performers of her time. And she's up there with the tops in any. When she could spit a rhyme, she could definitely sing, and she was one of the most prolific writers of her time. Her writing and her lyrics had depth. They spoke to your heart. They spoke to your need. They made you relate. It challenged you. It spoke to and gave a demand for excellence. It told us to be right within. I mean, it's just imagine for a second, just one of her songs, and think about the lyrics and get an understanding. And now look at it now, 20 years later, and what we're putting in the #1 spot. And you can see the degeneracy in the sense of the love and passion for music, the demand for excellence in music, the demand for excellence in presentation in any area in life, but more importantly in the area of thought and what we demand of ourselves as far as excellence is concerned. Again, this is not about hating on her hustle. You know, she did what she had to do in an environment that she was presented, and she rose to the occasion. My problem is the environment. An environment that doesn't demand much of our artists anymore, an environment that doesn't create the right mindset for artists. I'm all for artistic expression. I'm all for evolving music, evolving expression, creating new trends. I'm all for that. But what we have to look at as a Black collective is how we got from Lauryn Hill, the X-Clan, the Fugees, Tribe Called Quest, Rakim, all of them in that era. I mean, groups like Boys to Men and Guy, and I mean, people who really had vocal talents, who really sung, who really wrote lyrics. And then we definitely start traveling back into the 80s and the 70s, where you've got the Marvin Gayes, the Donny Hathaways, the Earth, Wind and Fires. the Earth, Wind, and Fires, and so much more. And you you look at it and how it's evolving, and you see not just a letdown, but you see an entire paradigmatic shift in what's being presented. And then if you don't understand the dynamic, you just tend to dismiss it. Now let me be fair in saying that we all have experienced the parent come in and say, that's not the music. When I was growing up, we've had that, and we told our kids when I was growing up, that's not what I'm talking about. Music changes, but there should be a demand for excellence in the way music is presented, because it's artistic expression. And as an artist, you should always want to be at the top of your game. That should be a type of racial socialization with our males and our females, in which we demand excellence of ourselves, that what we present is a representation of us and our people. When you see this in other cultures, you see it at its height. There has to be a representation, not just of myself, but who I am, where I come from. I represent not just myself, I represent my mother and father, I represent that family, and I represent this culture. And when I present something, I want to present it in a manner that tells those who don't know my family, those who don't know my culture, those who aren't aware of what we are and what we mean, and what Black people are capable of. I want them, when they have an encounter with my artistic expression, that it is indicative. What they get is indicative of where I come from. It's indicative of what I'm capable of. It's indicative of who I am. It should be a sense of pride in what I produce. But what we have to understand is the influences in the music don't come from Black interest. What you have to understand is when hip hop first entered the scene, and hip hop and R&B first entered the scene, it was seen as, especially hip hop, was seen as something, rap music was seen as something that wasn't going to last. It was trendy. It had no longevity. So there wasn't a lot of white dollars behind it. But once NWA and groups like that started selling mega, then all of a sudden there's money in it, and all of a sudden these white record labels started making creating R&B and hip hop budgets. And what we see over time is a dumbing down of the music, a dumbing down and a lack of demand of excellence. And another thing that we have to see is that was as producing started to transcend live recording and live composition and live playing and live bands, as music as producing started, the beat became more emphatic. And what I mean by that, the track became more emphatic than the content. In other words, people were listening to music not because of what was being said, but because of the beat. And there have been numerous times that songs that didn't have anything of any significant value, any substance, it was in high circulation or high rotation, simply because it was a banger. And we gave a lot of value to the banger. We gave a lot of value to the beat. And I'm not saying that the beat is a part of what we feel. And see, that's the danger in it. We as a people, the high level of melanin in our skin, the size of our pineal glands, actually make us more subjected to the movement and beats and everything like. So it pulls us, it moves us, it grabs us, it reaches out. And it reaches out and it grabs us. And so we start to respond to it. But see, there used to be a time that we would listen. We would listen to Marvin. We listen to Donnie. We listen to I mean, wow, so many Luther and Patti LaBelle and Whitney and all of these people. And then when it comes to rappers, I mean, I could just go on for days. I mean, you talk about groups like, talking about Rakim, LL, X-Clan, Tribe Called Quest, and on down the line. And I mean, that right after Pac, Biggie, and then Nas and Jay-Z, we started to tail off. Now we have, a few that are still there doing that thing. J. Cole, and a few others that are doing their thing and still delivering substance, which is extremely important. You got to remember, for a long time, we used music as an instrument of empowerment. We use music as an instrument of education. We use music as a way to send messages. That's how we communicate it. That's how we share it. That's how we empower it. You know, listen to some of the things that Marvin was singing about. Listen to some of the things that was in the music of the 70s that reflected the times of the 70s and the struggles of blacks in the 70s. And you find it in the music. You find it being delivered in a way that it can be received and played and inculcate the mind. And you can see that over and over again. One of the things about Lauren, one of the things that have made Mary J so popular is her music resonates with her fans, predominantly black females who can relate to what she's saying. She's speaking, and like I said, you know, when it comes to vocal talent, there are a lot of people out there that are vocally superior to Mary. But what makes Mary so successful, why she's seen in the way she's seen, is because of the realness that she's devoted to it. She's putting herself, she's reflecting herself, she's reflecting her pain, her life, she's sharing herself. That's a part of artistic expression. That's a part of realness. That's a part of what's being there. So when I sit up and I look at the only other person to accomplish what Cardi B has accomplished was Lauryn Hill. You compare Lauryn Hill to Cardi B. I'm not talking about dance moves. I'm not talking about skimpy attire. I'm not talking about beats. I'm talking about depth. I'm talking about the commitment to excellence. I'm talking about spending and investing time in your craft. Coming from a musical family, my mom was a recording artist. My baby brother is still a recording artist. Back in the early 2000s, I had ownership in the music industry for a while, which is actually where the Odyssey Project comes from. It comes from Odyssey Entertainment. There are actually some pictures and stuff, I think, in there from way back when. But so I've been a part of that industry. I've seen what it takes for an artist to put something that's valuable, that's of excellence on the table. I've seen my brother in the studio for hours on hours on hours. Then I've seen, after it's been done in the studio, I've seen him sit for months in front of his computer, mastering it. And I watch this, and then I turn around and I see somebody just throw something out there. And because it's got a good beat to it, and because it moves, but this is what we don't get. European Jews own all the major record labels for the most part. And when they found that there was money in the industry, they realized that they could come into this industry, bring the talent into the studio, into the label, and then squash creative freedom and dictate what would go on the album. So not only did they find a way to make money off of our gifts, they found a way to dumb down the message, the inspiration, the education, the empowerment, the hope of black people by putting trash in front of them. Content that does not uplift, content that is misogynistic, content that is hate, that promotes self-hatred, content that promotes colorism, content that promotes over-sexualization, content that is counter-intuitive to the development and the building of the family. And I can go on and on and on of what you're listening to, and then talk about how music is so powerful in the impression and imprint that of images and ideas that it puts upon the human mind. And then you got to think that our babies are listening to this music. Not only is it impacting the ideas and the way we think, because what I can tell you is that when you have a certain level of excellence, when you have a certain demand from yourself of what you want out of life and what you're going to get and what you're willing to accept, there's certain music you can't listen to. And if there's absolutely no limit on what you can listen to, it starts with you. This is the real. The real is, as you raise your level of excellence, what you're able to tolerate drops. Your level of tolerance for anything below the level of excellence starts to move you and demand. It starts to thin out your circle. It starts to thin out the people you allow in your periphery. And it starts to demand. I tell people that come to me, that work with me at the Visionetics Institute, I said that when you leave this world, you're going to leave this world with either a long list of results or a long list of reasons. You're going to have results because you put in the work, you put in the time, you demanded it of yourself. Every time you met a hurdle, you raised your standard high enough to get you over that hurdle. Or you're going to have a lot of reasons why you didn't get it done, reasons why it didn't happen, reasons why you never got anything that you said you wanted, reasons why you always ended up meandering through the maze of mediocrity. It was because you didn't raise your standards. And what I'm looking at here is we are actually moving backward in almost every way that matters. You got to understand that we're presenting an image of ourselves through our artistic expression, whether we're actors, whether we're writers and authors, poets, comedians, musicians, and performers. We are all presenting an image of ourselves with what we put out daily. It says it speaks to our personal brand. It speaks to our background. It speaks to what can be expected of us. And this works in a number of different ways. When we have a mainstream media that is hell-bent on presenting an image of blackness that is out of control, an image of blackness that is hyper-violent, an image of blackness that is lazy, an image of blackness that is inhuman, and that's the image that they are consistently putting out about us. We have to take our opportunities when we have media exposure to counter the image. We must show that we can deliver excellence. We must show that we can deliver power. We must show that we can love one another. We must show that we can self-educate. We must show that we have the capacity to be something special. We must show self-love. Why? Because we're not only expressing ourselves to those who don't look like us. We're expressing ourselves to those who are looking up to us, who look like us, who are expecting us to deliver them an idea of what to expect out of life. They're aspiring to, they are thinking of, they're looking at. And you're wondering why little JoJo wants to be a dope dealer, because he sees more dope dealers than he sees daddies. And then when he turns on the radio, the dope dealer is being big upped. He's not being conditioned and trained early in life, properly socialized to believe that he can be a business owner. So he tries a few low-end jobs, and when he can't really make it in that because he doesn't fit and he's not treated the way his heart tells him deep down inside he wants to be treated, he resorts to the underground world to make a living. And we wonder why. We'll study feeding him music that promotes that type of lifestyle, that promotes irresponsibility, that promotes being lackadaisical in producing and presenting something that is representative of you. I come from an era in which one day, probably about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was watching this video of Marvin Gaye, and he was singing, I can't even remember the song, but he was singing this song, and he was in the studio with his band, and they're playing, and he said, well, okay, let's do this part, and then they singing, and this video was like an hour or so long, and they're on the same song, and they're just going, and they're going, and then so I looked into it a little deeper, and they said these sessions would run hours and hours and hours on one song, and they would get it to the point to where they could just do it in their sleep, and they wouldn't let it go to the studio until they had mastered it. They wouldn't record it in the studio until they had mastered it in practice. And then they wouldn't release the record until they had mastered it in the studio. And then I look at what we're putting out now. Again, I'm not attacking this young lady. She got on her grind. She got on her hustle. I understand that her story is unbelievable from where she comes from, what she had to fight through. What I'm saying is that should have been a higher standard, is what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm happy that we make it. But my thing is, how much is out there now being presented that's going to even ensure that her success provides something long-term for her in the way of her career, but in the way of her security? What are we doing to teach that? Because all of this comes in that. Because all the music is about irresponsibility. It's highly sexualized. It's highly objectifying to our women. There's nothing. I remember growing up in a time, the late 70s, when I was old enough to start liking girls, the late 70s and the 80s, when I could put on a record and tell a girl everything I wanted to say to her in person. Or I can listen to a record and get ideas about what I wanted to spit because the guy was talking about something. He was saying something. He was expressing himself. It was a lot more records about marriage, a lot more records about family, a lot more records uplifting. But now, where is it? I'm gonna knock you down. I'm gonna wet you up. I'm gonna do I'm gonna hit it. I'm a cut. All the things, all the different euphemisms we have for sex. It's in the music, but it's no euphemisms, no expressions. No commitment. No commitment. We can't commit to anything. We can't commit to anything of any true nature. So when I talk about this young lady, what I'm saying is I wish her the best. But I am so ready for more substance, more depth. And I think the fact that we only have 2 black representations at the #1 spot of the Hot 100 is absolutely what we need, because you have a clear comparison. Lauryn Hill, Cardi B. Now, as much as you might like the Cardi B song or the album or whatever she's put out, the video, you can find every racial group out there dancing to it, because I've looked and I've seen. As much as you like that, do you honestly, when all things considered, think you can put this young lady in the same category with Lauryn Hill? Now the thing is, we talking about Lauryn, who was unbelievably sick with what she could do. But see, the thing is with Lauryn, when she did that, she was at the top of the game, but she wasn't the only one. That's when music still mattered. That was towards the end, but I think it's time for a music renaissance. I think it's time that we clean the airwaves and we start producing something that can produce the type of adults that we want to take our race to the next level. And when I look at the representation, and then I look at the appreciation I have for music. I have an immense appreciation of music, having grown up in a musical family and having watched my mom, watched my brother, watched family members outside of those two, be involved in it a little bit myself, see the work that goes into putting a quality product out, and then see non-blacks finance BS to feed to us, to dumb us down. I have a problem with that. Now, how I'm going to close this out is on the real. While I'm sitting up and I'm saying I demand a level of excellence from the music I listen to, and there's some out there now. There are some out there that are actually killing the game, and I absolutely love them. But when I say that I'm demanding a level of excellence from the music I listen to, from the artists I support, there's a requirement from me. Anytime that I'm saying I'm demanding something from someone, I've got to take into consideration what producing what I demand costs them. See, when we look at Lil Shoot Rock, I'm just making up a rap name, Lil Shoot Rock from the hood. He started spitting when he was about 11 or 12. He's got something. He actually came up around some people who kicked him knowledge on the game of the black struggle. So he's got some inspirational stuff, but he talks about the stuff that happens in the hood too. He talks about the dope game because he sees it. He's got all of it, but he's talking about elevation and empowerment in his lyrics, and he's spitting it. He's starting to get a little buzz in the hood. He's starting to get hot. People are starting to recognize him. People are talking about it. And it makes its way to an NR or a recruiter from a record label, right? Now, Lil Shoot Rock, just in the hood, but he trying to come up. He doing some little club stops and everything like that. And he's building his reputation. Check this out. He comes from a poor environment. He haven't seen a whole lot of black ownership. He doesn't understand anything about building generational wealth. He just knows that his mama's struggling to pay the bills. His daddy hasn't been around. And here comes a record label that tells him, I'm going to give you a $500,000 signing bonus. I'm going to give you a so-and-so amount budget for your tour. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get you endorsements with this company and that company. By the end of the year, you'll be a millionaire. Now, if I'm going to demand that Lil Shoot Rock turn that deal down, which is more money than he has ever seen in his life or seen anybody with in his life, I've got to be willing to underwrite him and support him and say, I'm going to invest in you owning your own label. I'm going to invest in you investing in your own music so you can do your music your way, so you can have creative freedom, so that you can speak on what you believe in and not be dictated what you're going to speak based on a paycheck and your need for that money. See, it comes a point when black people are going to have to back up the people that they're demanding from. So when I come out and I say I'm demanding something of black musicians and black entertainers, I'm saying that we've got to have a platform. And what I'm saying is I'm willing to get behind you. Number one is I'm willing to make the same sacrifice. I've lost clients because of my stand on Black Beauty. I've had 2 of my top 3 clients come to me in 2014, the summer of 2014, and threatened to leave because they hadn't gotten wind of what they called my racial rhetoric. And they were asking me simply to tone it down. And the very idea that they felt they had a right to come to me and tell me how I could speak on my interests, my needs, my concerns for my people was enough for me to know that I needed to speak louder, that I needed to speak harder, that I needed to speak longer, that I needed to write more. And so I stood up and told them, no, I will not tone it down. You will not dictate to me. If that means we're parting ways, we're parting ways. They left. I had to make that choice. But see, the difference is in me making that choice is I was in my 40s when I made that choice. I'm 50 now. I was in my 40s when I made that choice. I was like 47, 48 years old when I made that choice. I had went through a lot. I had learned a lot. I had to determine and come to the understanding of who I was as a black man. I had fallen in love with my blackness. So it was easy for me to make that. I can't expect a 17-year-old to make that same decision if I haven't provided the foundation, if I haven't provided the investment, if I haven't provided the love and the support, the advice to do that. I can't expect that from them. I can expect them to get paid. So what we have to do is provide an environment and a system and an infrastructure that will support quality music, quality lyrics, quality influences, quality books, quality films. We've got to invest in ourselves. We spend a lot of money in movies. We spend a lot of money in the music industry. We spend a lot of money in all of these places that impact us. We spend money in, but we own very little. And then we are frustrated because we lack control. You don't have to worry about creative control when you create and own the rights to everything. But see, that requires a collective movement. That requires support. That requires simply saying, I believe it, saying I'm willing to invest in it. See, I understand how all of these little mechanisms work. This didn't happen in a vacuum. We didn't get from Lauryn Hill to Cardi B in a vacuum. We got there through racial engineering, social engineering, economic engineering, political engineering. We got there through a controlled environment in which we didn't understand how things worked, and they manipulated a system, and we complied. I think it was Umar Johnson that says white supremacy racism is absolutely nothing without black compliance. We're consistently compliant because we're consistently attempting to assimilate into a system that wasn't created for us. We can sit up and pretend all day long, but I can go off into every mechanism or aspect of living and point out to you how your element, even though it is similar to your white counterparts, is different. From religion, Christianity, from business, from school, politics, healthcare, every area that you operate in. Look at what your white counterpart is doing in that area now and how they're behaving, some of the things they're saying, and how it relates to you. And tell me that it's not a difference in the way you're being handled versus the way they're being handled, even though you're doing the same thing. You can sit up and buy this, that color doesn't matter, race doesn't matter. The only people it doesn't matter to, it seems, is us. Everybody else is protecting their interests. And we're going to have to protect our babies. We're going to have to protect our babies. We're going to have to educate, holistically educate, empower our kids. We've got to properly racially socialize them to prepare them to be able to enter into a world that's hostile towards them as adults and not only perform, but compete, and not only compete, but win. That's our responsibility to the next generation. That's our responsibility. We have failed in that responsibility. I want you to go back. Take the time, those of you who are serious about understanding and knowing what's going on. The reason we're exploited is because we don't understand how things work. The simplest explanation I can give you. When you don't understand how things work, you're easily manipulated by those who do. It's that simple. We don't take time to understand how things work. Do one thing for me, this one little piece of research. Go back, think about people you used to look at and say they had a voice for the Black community. And then ask yourself what happened to them and do the research on what happened. And tell me if not every last one of them met some kind of hostile force that broke them down, discredited them, or tried to destroy them. This is systematic. This has been going on for years. They use W.E.B. Du Bois. Nobody wants to talk about that. They use W.E.B. Du Bois to break down and destroy Marcus Garvey. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about how the powerful voice, the inspirational voice is always quieted. And the reason it's quieted it because we're willing to accept it. We let people who really and truly have a passion for us, who really and truly love us, who really and truly speak for us, step out there and stand on a ledge by themselves, leave them hanging. We don't underwrite them. We don't support them. We don't stand with them. We don't fight with them. We put them out there. We ride their coattail until they get knocked off their perch, and then we move on to the next one. It's time for us to own our own destiny. It's time for us to stand up and look at what we want. And we do this by raising the standard of expectation. We must demand excellence of ourselves in every area. And this is why I'm addressing this thing right here, this whole card. We've got to go back to a point where we demand excellence in anything we want from ourselves first, and then from anyone that we're in contact with. We can no longer be okay with mediocrity and being average. You weren't created to be average. You were created to be awesome. You were created to do something spectacular. You were created to make your imprint on this world. You were created to come into a world that needed you and make an impact on that world and change that world, leaving that world better than when you found it. That's a responsibility that every last one of you has. It's time to rise above the mediocrity, the complacency, the willingness to just exist, the willingness to just simply survive. You got to come out of the comfort zone. Where I'm talking about standing and living, it's not comfortable. There's hostility. There's anger. There's all of this pushback. But there's reward. I want to see people like Cardi B take their talents to a level in which people can listen to it years from now and it be timeless. See, Lauren's music is timeless. Marvin's music is timeless. Sam Cooke's music is timeless. Miles Davis is timeless. It doesn't matter. Earth, Wind, and Fire, timeless. Confunction, timeless. Luther, timeless. Joe Thomas, timeless. There's something about excellence that when you master your craft, when you invest yourself in doing what you do at the highest level possible for you to do it, It transcends you, and it leaves an imprint in this world that outlives you. It's called a legacy. And your job or your desire should be to leave a legacy in whatever it is that you determine is your passion. It should be at a level of excellence, and it should be done from a position of ownership. I'm going to leave it at that. I stayed a lot longer than I wanted to. My voice is dead. But I definitely want to talk about that. We have way too much power that lies dormant because we're still waiting on the approbation and the approval of others outside of ourselves to stand up and be us. The time is out for that. You should have a love for yourself. See, and the wonderful thing about it is, stop believing the narrative that in order to love yourself, you got to hate somebody else. You don't. Loving yourself is just simply going to put you in a place where there are certain things you accept and certain things you don't accept, and the things you don't accept, you change. Stop letting people tell you that loving on yourself and doing things that are pro-black is somehow reverse racism. No, that's self-preservation. That's the number one rule of the universe. I want to see us do so much more, living at the level of our design. I want to see that so badly. I absolutely love you guys. I say that all the time. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm going to die on E. That is the one thing in this world I do know, that I'm going to live my life on full and I'm going to die on E. I'm challenging each and every one of you who watches this video to do the same thing. Wake up and challenge yourself to raise the level of engagement, the level of performance, the level of love, the level of intensity, and the level of expectations you have for your life and those you're responsible for. And live life on full so that you die on E. That's it for me. I'm out of here. Peace.